Good afternoon, everyone. First, giving honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ, who is worthy to be praised from the rising of the sun until the going down of the same. He is worthy to be praised. Coming to you today from Restore from the Inside Out Ministries. And today we're going to talk about Gideon again. Yesterday we were in chapter 6 of Judges, talking about a young man God is going to use. The Israelites of God's people are crying out to him, saying, "Why have you delivered us into the hands of the Midianites? They are not good to us. They are evil. They take our food and our and livestock and destroy our land." God has given them over to the Midianites for 7 years. And so they're crying out to God and says, "Where are the promises you blessed us? Where are our blessings you promised us? You even told our forefathers that you have laid up blessings in land for us to walk into." But because of their disobedience, God had to deal with them, and he delivered them into the hands of the Midianites. They were worshiping idol gods. There was immorality. They were turned over to themselves, doing their own thing. And God said, "No, that's not how it's going to work. You've walked away from me." So now they cry out all the more. And God now sees this young man, Gideon, in the wine press, hiding out, threshing wheat, because if the Midianites see him, they're going to do the same to him, steal it, tear things down. And so Gideon is hiding, but the angel of the Lord visits him. Ooh, the angel of the Lord has visited some of us, and he's telling us what the Lord is asking us to do in this season. And we're a lot like Gideon. We're going to question him. We're going to be fearful. We're going to act like we're not enough. We're going to tell him that we're the weakest in our house and that we're the least of them. And I've always been told that I'll never be nobody. The family I came from, they never made it. And I don't have the credentials, the education. But God says, it is not you who's going to do it. It is me. He says, so you hold on. I'm going to give you instructions on how to do it. And he gives, and Gideon, to make sure that this God is saying who he is and what he's going to do in his life, he challenges God with one last challenge in the end of chapter 6. And it's a piece of wool, a fleece. And what he says to God, look, if you're actually going to do what you're saying you're going to do by delivering the Midianites into my hand, me, the weak one, the one that's least likely to be involved in something like this, he said, I have this piece of fleece, and I want you to make this fleece wet with dew. And everything around the fleece I want dry, and then I will believe you. He gets up the next morning. It's so. Oh, Gideon, he just doesn't believe it. He's nervous. He's not believing God. And he said, okay, I got one more thing, God, just one more. God says, okay. He said, listen, now make everything around the fleece wet and have the fleece dry, and I'll believe you. God does that. So now Gideon is ready to go because God has now proven himself to him. And now Gideon is believing on this God that he is going to deliver the Midianites in his hand. So now we're going to go into Judges chapter 7. I'm not going to read every verse, but I have some verses picked out here. And we're going to start with verse 2. He's saying to Gideon, listen, man, you have too many men, because Gideon has gathered all of Israel out and going before God, and God is getting ready to give them instruction on how to operate and how they're going to take out the Midianites. And so in verse 2, he says, look, you have too many men. He said, you got to weed them out. And how God does that, he says to Gideon, he says, and the Lord said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into your hand, lest Israel claim the glory, the victory for themselves against me, saying, my own hands saved me. God says that's not so. How many of us are claiming victories that we know it was nothing but the grace of God? It wasn't the paycheck. Sometimes that's why the job loss is, because you were leaning on that job and had made that job your idol. Some things we hold on. Sometimes we worship our cars, we worship our homes, we worship our credentials, our education, our spouses, our children. God said, no, that's not what won this, or that's not how you got that, or that is not how you're making it. It is me, and you forgot about me. So, you know what? Let me take that away from you, and maybe you can, refocus and look to where you really got that from. So, I believe in this season there's going to be some recalibration, some refocusing, and we're going to know that where we are and how we got here, it was but by the grace of God. So he's saying to Gideon, you got too many men here. And listen how he's going to say to him to weed this thing out. And because he's saying you got too many. He said, now, therefore, proclaim in their hearing of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let them turn and depart. And 22,000 men left. And I read some things on that. Why would you ask them if they are afraid if they came down to fight? And they said that's how they weeded out the army. That was the first set of men to go. They would ask who's afraid, and whoever was afraid, they sent them home. Can't fight with a weak army. And those footmen I talked about, they may have been some of those, because the footmen were the ones they sent out on the battlefield first and saved the strongest last, so they could weaken the other army by using those men. And a lot of times they knew the footmen were not going to make it. So he said to Gideon, get rid of them. You got too many. Send the weak home. 22,000 walked away, and Gideon only had 32,000. So that left 10,000 men. And God is saying it's like the wheat and the tares. When they grow up together, you can't tell them apart. But once the bloom comes, that's when you'll know the wheat from the tares. So he had to call it out. And he says, then you can pick the wheat and the tares. And the tares, he said, bundle it up. The farmer said, bundle it up and throw it in the fire. And those in the wheat, we're going to bring it to the barn. So now we broke it down to 10,000 people. And John 15 tells us that, you know what? He will prune off some things. He's going to cut off some things. And once he does that, he's going to throw it in the fire. And he said, they who are in me must abide. Them in me, and I abide in you. He said, for you are without me, you are nothing. That's what God is saying in John 15. Let's see what it says over here in verse 5. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. Gideon, he said, you're not going to take the win for this. You're not going to take credit for this. Now listen to what he says about a person with pride. I kept hearing about our pride and a haughty spirit. He said, that's what I have worked on throughout this COVID season. I have to call some of you out because you think you're doing things in your own strength. And I'm going to show you through this season. And I feel in the name of Jesus, somebody is wrestling with God because he's trying to knock that pride off of you. He's trying to deal with that haughty spirit. And God says in this season, you have to know that it's not you. Without me, you can do nothing. You have to, David said, heed your ear to the mouth of God and the mouth of God to your ear. Even the scriptures over in Psalms said, bow your ear down to me, O God, and hear my cry. Listen to that. Listen to Proverbs 16 verse 18 is one of the scriptures he gave. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. 19 says, better to be of a humble spirit with the lowly, than to divide the spoil with the proud. He who heeds the word wisely will find good, and whoever trusts in the Lord, happy is he. 21. The wise in heart will be called prudent, and sweetness of the lips increases learning. That's Proverbs 16, 18 through 21. He said those with a prideful spirit in this season, he's dealt with you. He's still dealing with you. And he says, listen, until you know it's me, You're going to always hit your head up against a brick wall. So he's saying now that I got to weed these people out, because you know what, Gideon, you're not going to take credit. Israel is not going to take credit for what I've done. And some of us have taken the credit of God, and he's dealing with us in that. 1 Peter 5:6 says, humble yourselves before the Lord, that he may exalt you in due season. Cast your cares on him, for he cares for you. 1 Peter 5-6. So that's what he's saying to Gideon. The first group gone, 22,000, because they're afraid, gone. Now he's saying, I got another challenge for you, Gideon. You still have too many. Wow. The Midianites had 135,000 in their army. He's telling Gideon, you have too many. How many of us are afraid because we don't think we have enough money? Because we think our money is what makes it. We don't think we have the best car. We don't think we have the best. We're even afraid to invite people to our homes because we don't think we got it like the Joneses. But without God, he said, you have nothing. You can do nothing. So that's what he's saying to Gideon here. He says, now listen, these are the ones I'm going to choose. And he says that once he weeds them out, he says, let them go back home. Send them back home. And then 4 again, he says, you still have too many. Listen to verse 4, because God says when he gives instruction, you heed to his instructions. Don't do it your way. He said, don't add to it or take away. Listen at the instruction he's giving Gideon. Because you know what? Some of us have lost blessings because we won't do it God's way. We do it our way. But the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you. The same shall go with you. And of whomever I say to you, this one shall not go with you, the same shall not go. Verse 5, listen to this. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps from the water with his tongue as a dog laps, you shall set apart himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on their knees to drink, and the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300. But all the rest of them, the people got down on their knees to drink. 9,700 got down on their knees to drink. 300 got down and lapped like a dog. I'm laughing because God said some things to me today. He said, listen, yes, let me finish, because the ones that lapped like a dog, that's the 300 he chose. Listen to verse 7. Then the Lord said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped, I will save and deliver Midianites in your hand. And I know some of us are saying, I'm not going to do that, Lord. God calling me to this platform and said, no, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm doing it, right? God is saying his way or the highway. If you don't do it God's way, it will not work the way God would have it to work. So what God is saying here, how many of us to get in social clubs do some stupid stuff? How many of us have markings on our body from fraternities and sororities? How many of us have been spanked and paddled to get in fraternities? And so many of them have succumbed to death because they've drank themselves to death trying to join a club, but yet you won't do what this God says? Let me tell you what I read on this. When a dog gets down to lap, they look and watch as they're drinking their water. When you're down on your knees, you put your head all the way down and you cannot see. So God said, those are the ones I want, because if they're lapping the water with their hand, they're watching as they lap the water, and they'll be able to see when the people come upon them. If your head is down in the dirt, down in the dumps, or you know what the farmer said over in Matthew 13, how did this happen? How did the weeds get planted with the wheat? He said, because we were sleeping. Sleeping meaning you're not reading your word, you're not praying to God. Okay, now with your head down, your head is somewhere else, you're doing other things. That means you're not studying this word of God. So he said, give me the 300 that's lapping like a dog. God believes on quality, not quantity. God says, I want it the way I need for it to be done because you're not going to take credit for this. And so now Gideon is down to 300 people to Midianites 135,000. 100,000 plus was on the front page of the New York Times that succumbed to COVID. Think about the others. Lost jobs, lost minds, stress, mental sickness. The job loss sometimes means for your good because sometimes we didn't take care of God when we were working those jobs. We invited people, for a ride. If we got a brand new car, God, I'm gonna bring someone to church. I'm gonna take someone to their doctor's appointment. I'll pick up kids that are less fortunate in the community. God, I'll volunteer in the church. God, have we done any of that? Listen, Hannah over in 1 Samuel 16. That's coming in. Hannah had a son, and his name was Samuel, and she promised God. She made a vow to God. It wasn't that Hannah couldn't get pregnant. It just wasn't the right time. When she had that baby, before she had the baby, she said to God, I'll give him back to you. Not only will I give him back to you, God, I would not allow them to cut his hair. That was a Nazarite law, some kind of sign of weakness. But again, it is not about you being weak. It's God through you. Your weakness, it will make you strong. Oh, thank you. Somebody needs some strength, and all you have to do is push into God. So he's saying to Gideon here, honey, you have too many men. I'm going to narrow it down to 300. Those 300 are going to be the ones lapping like a dog. So you know what? You've done worse than lap like a dog. You've put yourself out there in some crazy situations. And if it wasn't but for the grace of God, you would be dead. What the Clark sisters say, it should have been me. It could have been me. But it was God who saved me. You better do what God is saying. God ain't going to put you in no danger to where you can't get out of in harm's way. Now, that is 7 through 8. Now we're going to verse 9. What it says is, listen, Luke 2:52, because I want you to listen to this dream. Oh my goodness, God has shown you, he's given you signs and wonders and what he wants you to do. You've heard what he said, and you still are afraid. Now he says to, let's back it up. Because God said to Gideon, I have delivered the Midianites in your hands. See, your battle is already won before you even go and do anything physical. God has already worked it out. You're just walking it out. He knew the plans before you came and was placed in your mother's womb, is what he told Jeremiah. I knew you before I placed you in your mother's womb. He says, listen, I justified you. I sanctified you. I ordained you to do this. So whatever God is calling you to do, he already knew it. You're not just showing up on the scene and he's assigning you a job right now. That job was given to you prior to coming into the earth. So what God is saying in this season, what is it going to take for you to turn to me and say, what is it, God? Arrest me. Tell me what it is you're calling me to do. What else? COVID is not enough. It's like the covers were on this heaping pile of mess, and he ripped the covers off, and everybody's looking at the mess saying, okay, God, what you going to do? Like the Midianites. Okay, God, you said we're going to get these blessings, God. Somebody has to stand up in the gap like Gideon. Say I'm afraid. Say I can't do it. Because verse 9, he says to God, God said, now, Gideon, what I need for you to do, because now you've sent the men home, we're going to take a nap. And he said, Gideon, arise. This is verse 9. He said, listen, you got to go on down to the field where the Midianites are. I need for you to go down to the camp of the Midianites. And when you go down there, he said, if you're afraid, listen, he already knows that you're afraid. He said, if you are afraid to go by yourself, he said, go with your servant Purah. See, God will send the right people. Don't you choose to take a person. Let me tell you what I said to my son. If you're going on a business deal, if you're going into a meeting, do not take anyone that God doesn't tell you to take, because, honey, they'll walk away with the deal and leave you looking like a fool sitting there, and it was your deal in the first place. Don't take someone with you that is not supposed to be with you. He says to him, God names the person. Take Purah with you if you are afraid. Isn't it something that we have to take someone with us to walk in our blessing? Woo! God says, listen, once you come to know who I am, once I've told you you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you should know that quite well, he said, I am the one that has your back. I am the one who's going to fight the battle. So he's taking Purah with him because he is afraid. And they go down to the camp of the Midianites, and this is what he hears. He hears one of the Midianites talking to his companion, and listen to verse 12. It says, verse 11 tells him he's going to hear what needs to happen. So verse 12 says, now the Midianites and the Amalekites, all the people of the east were lying in the valley, numerous. Do you hear that? Didn't he just weed his stuff down to 300? So he gonna win this battle, not with a mass of people. And he said the Midianites were numerous as locusts. You remember how locusts come out in 7 years? They're all over the place. They're almost all in your mouth sometimes when you come outside. That's how many it is. And he said their camels were without number as the sand of the seashore. And they used these camels because they were large families. And they said they could sit like 4 and 5 people on a camel. But they're saying, listen how large they are. Their army is. And Gideon is going to be 300. I would be afraid too, probably. Listen. And it says that in Gideon in verse 13, when he had come there, he heard a man telling a dream to his companion. And he said, I have a dream to surprise. I have a dream. To my surprise, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of the Midianites and into a tent, and it struck it so that it fell and overturned, and the tent collapsed. And what that means is they said barley bread is of the poor. It's considered weak. It's less than the cost of a wheat, and it's not. And wheat is better for you. Meaning, he's taking the weak old Gideon, and it's going to be the weak one. He's weak right now, but now he's walking in the strength of the Lord. But the barley bread represents that the Midianites are going to become the weak ones, and they're going to be overtaken by God through Gideon. Let's not get it messed up. It is God working through you. And if God works through you, you're going to win this battle. And again, it's not going to be how you think it's supposed to come out. It's not going to be the 5,000. If he says 2 people, it's going to be 2. Oop, there we go. See how God intervenes? He took that boy 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and 5. He fed the 5,000, it says, and they didn't count the women and children. Not only that, they had scraps to pick up. Look at God. See how God works? God doesn't do it the way you do it. 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread, fed an army. That's how God works. Thank you. And so what he's saying to him, he said that barley loaf represents that now you're working through, I'm working through you, Gideon. I'm going to rescue, I'm going to have you take over these Midianites. You're going to wipe them out. So listen at verse 14. But again, he said it overturned, it fell, meaning the Midianites are going to fall in the hands of Gideon. Let me slow down because I got excited. Again, he started out with 32,000 people. God weeded it down to 300 lapping people, lapping up water like dogs. God will make he said, I will make you, Sarah said, God will make you laugh. He will take I told you, the foolish things of the wise. He will take the foolish things of the world and confound the wise. So here we are in verse 14. Let's clean this thing up. He's saying now here, then his companion answered and said, this is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. Into his hand God has delivered Midian and the whole camp. They have not fought. Did you hear that? God has delivered that thing into your hands. God has already said, claim the job, claim the car, claim the house, whatever it is he's saying that you're going to have. He says it's already done. You just have to believe. Oh, ye of little faith is what he's saying. But the mustard seed. And he said that mustard seed uh, is one of the smallest seeds. And some people, they argue the point now, but back then it was the smallest seeds, but it grew the biggest in the garden to the point where birds perched in it to where you couldn't see them. They lived in there. Look how God would take your blessing and blow it up. People don't believe on you. But God says, if you will work with me, I abide in you and you in me. He said, we will bring forth much fruit. But again, don't you claim the victory. God says he's the one. Listen at verse 15. And so it was when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he then worshiped. Now, he done gave him 4 times proof that he is God. Now, he's going to worship God after he has dreamed. He done put water on the fleece. He even squares a bowl of water out the fleece, and then he going to re-ask God. But that's how we are, and I love it that God can take a story out of his word and show us that we are like these people. We have emotions because sometimes when we minister to people, when we talk to people, especially when we minister to men, we want to make them think they have to be rah, rah, rah. I'm strong and I don't get weak. I don't cry. You know what? We all fall short of this glory of God. We all have weaknesses. We all hurt. We are all broken from something. If you are a born again believer, that's why you believed on this God, because you're believing his strength is sufficient for you, and his grace is sufficient for you, and his strength is made perfect in your weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. That verse came out before I meant for it to come out because I have it in my notes here. So anyway, he's now worshiping, and now they're setting it up. Now they're going to go in. Let me read verse 16 and finish this thing up. Verse 16, then he divided the 300 men into 3 companies of 100 each. And he put a trumpet in every man's hand with empty pitchers and torches inside the pitchers. He took the weapons away, no guns, no knives. He said, you don't need any of that. He said, my praise and worship, he said, that stuff confuses the wise, confuses the enemy. He told that woman over in John 4 at the well, all I ask you to do, it is not where you worship, it's not perfecting your worship. He said, it is about worshiping me in spirit and in truth. And let me say something to you people. Ask God for wisdom. Pray for discernment. You will know if you are dwelling in this God. He says you will abide under the shadow of the Almighty, meaning God, when you walk in a place or when there is decision making for your life and you're talking with God and others are talking to you about what they think God says to you and what is for you, if you are in right relationship, if you have on that breastplate of righteousness, if you have to do it like Gideon, asking God, questioning God, fearful, as long as God knows that heart is earnest, you can best believe you will not go wrong. You will not be fearful. You will not turn back. You will know that God is working on your behalf, and you will not be entangled by the snares of the enemy. Oh, that's for somebody. You are fearful. You are talking to God. You are praying to this God, and you are not sure, and you're asking others. Don't ask. You can ask, but you walk out on what God said. And not only that, you remember I said, God said to Gideon, if you are fearful, I'm sending you down to the camp so you can scope out the Midian's camp so you'll know how to go in there and take it over. But if you're afraid, take your servant Purah. He's going to tell you who's going to go with you and who's going to be for you. Not everyone is for you. Some people are only with you to size you up and to take what God has given you. So be careful. Judas was chosen only to push God to where he needed to go. Be careful. Keep hearing God. Keep praying and asking God, is it you, Lord? Did you say that, God? Do not share your vision and your dreams with everyone. Joseph, you remember Joseph over in Genesis, when he came out and talked to his brothers about his dream, they got mad. His own brothers threw him in a pit. Some people say Joseph was prideful. I just believe Joseph was a young man seeing the things of God that God has said was going to happen in his life. And he was saying it, not knowing he was being prideful, but they're going to throw you in a pit. They're going to sell you off. So you best be careful of how you do what with God has given you. He gave instructions on how to do it. He told Gideon how to, bring the people, to weed them out, to take the right ones with them. And he said, you know what? Those are the ones to take. I mean, he gave instructions step by step by step. But because sometimes we want to do it our way, it doesn't work. Let's get back to this. So verse 16, it says he broke everybody up in an army of sects of 3, meaning there was 100 in each one. Gave each one of them a trumpet in their right hand, a pitcher, and a torch in the other hand. That's their weapons, man. God doesn't need a gun. God says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. And every tongue that rises up against you in judgment, he will condemn. And he said, that is the heritage of his servant, and our righteousness is of him. So they're going to make all this noise, and they're going to, the Midianites, they're going to fight one another and turn on each other and kill one another. So Gideon goes down, and they're making all this noise, and they're the Midianites come out to fight them, and see that Gideon and his army has come down. And listen to verse 22. He says, listen, because Gideon is telling them to do what I do. When I blow the trumpet, you blow the trumpet. When I make the noise and break up the pitchers, you break up the pitchers. He's following the instructions of God. You've got to have a vision for your people. He said, without a vision, your people perish. For a lack of vision, lack of knowledge, my people perish. Gideon did what God had showed him after God, being in the hands of God. God showed him how to weed the men out. Now Gideon, from verses 16 all the way down to verse 22, he's telling the men how to line up, what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And so they're not afraid, and they are knowing what to do. That's how God works. God gives upfront instruction. His word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. Look at God keep jumping in here. And I know you probably say, no, that's not. Yes, if you would stick in God, like it says, if you abide in me, I in you, you will bring forth much fruit. I am sitting in a season of not understanding, but I'm allowing God to do what it is he wants to do in and through me. I've said, I said that to the family. I said, listen, in the past, I've tried to do it your way. I've heard you more than I heard God. I would hear what God say. I will walk out on what you say. Not this season. I remember saying over and over in these videos, God said, when you go into 2020, and I wrote it down in November 21, 2019, you must have courage in this season. And I was like, what in the world is going to be in this season? Look at what is going on. And I said to my family on last year, this year, it is God's way. I don't care what you say if it's not aligning to the will of God. And some will walk away. He had what? 22,000 up front walk away, then 9,700 walk away. Sometimes even family members will walk away. But if you know you're doing the will of God, you press toward that mark of the high call, which is Jesus the Christ, and it will work out. And if you're not going the way of the Lord, it will show. But let me tell you something. If people are not going the way of the Lord, getting back to that discerning spirit and that wisdom, because in Luke 2:52, when Jesus was in that temple, it said, and Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. You're going to know if whatever people are doing, saying, being in your life, if it's not aligning with this word, I go to God and say, it just doesn't seem to be what you would say or do. Tell me what I should do, God. Be like Gideon. Be afraid and ask questions. Say, give me another sign. That's what he said. And God is going to work it out in your life for your good. That's what he told Joseph, right? What the enemy meant for evil, I mean for your good. Listen to verse 22. When the 300 blew the trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his companion throughout the whole camp, and the army fled to Beth Acacia towards Zariah, as far as the border of Abel Mahola and Tabath. And the men of Israel gathered together from Naphtali, Asher, and all of Manasseh, and pursued the Midianites. Then Gideon sent message throughout all of Ephraim, saying, come down against the Midianites and seize them. And he killed all the Midianites and conquered 2 princesses. That's how this God will do. I have some notes here, and it says, look, Jesus' weakness on the cross was Jesus' strength perfected. Because you remember, God had to turn his back on his son. And again, the young lady said to me, can you imagine him crying out, oh, Father, why have thou forsaken me? God couldn't look on him. His father had left him. But on the 3rd day morning, that's the strength, he got up with all power in his hand. He walked among the disciples, and like old doubting Thomas, like Gideon, and I mean, I might be like doubting Thomas. Let me see your holes, Jesus. Let me see where they nailed you to the cross. Jesus rather for you to be earnest in heart. You heard him say that in Proverbs 16. He said, you know what? The wise is the one who increases more. But if we fake like we got it all together and going left and wrecking ourselves, God said, those are the ones I can't use. I can't use the ones who's fearful. I can't use the ones who's bending all down in the knee and can't see what's going on. I want those that are lapping and watching all along. Be watchful this season. Be careful. If God is saying to wear your mask, wear the mask. If God says don't go there, don't go there. If God is saying, you know what, wash your hands 15 times, wash them 15 times. He's saving you from something. And today I was talking to someone. I said, when you get behind a slow car, that could be God saying, there's a wreck up ahead that I'm saving you from. Even in a grocery line, when people are, running and trying to get ahead of you, I'll look back and say, you know what, today God is teaching me patience. You go right ahead, sweetheart. It may be something out there he doesn't want me to walk into. Slow down. Hear God for this season. I believe it's a season of blessings. I believe it's a season that God wants us to talk with him, walk with him, and say to him, I am afraid. Tell me how to walk out of this thing alive, God, not just physically, but spiritually alive, that I would talk about you, that I will represent you. I would tell people about you. I would say to them that I didn't do this in my life. You did this, because if it was me, I would have walked away. That's what I would say to him. So just be mindful of what God is trying to do in your life. I'm telling you, it's funny. Will you lap like a dog, or will you bend down on your knees, or will you walk away from what God is asking you to do? Again, look how many things we do to get into social clubs, fraternities and sorority groups, and to be on a team. Sometimes you see these people in college, right? These actors and actresses paid these colleges so their kids can get in it. Nothing's new under the sun. Be Gideon. And again, let me see here. It says we experience God's strength through our weaknesses. Listen, he said there is treasures in these earthen vessels. 2 Corinthians verse 7 through 9. Whatever that is in you, without him, it will not manifest. I'm telling you, I know and feel and believe your strength is increasing and your faith is growing and your spirit is not where it was when you first came in the season. Because I've talked to quite a few of you. And you've said to me how God has blessed you in this season. Some of you have obtained material gain, spiritual gains. And think about it. We're in a famine. We're in a COVID season. We're in a drought. We're in chaos. We're in pain. We're stressed. We're mentally stressed out, sick in our bodies. Sometimes we want to run for this God, and sometimes we want to be like Gideon. Show it to me again, God. He's okay with that. There will be times where we'll be running like horses, but also we'll be like the footmen. We'll be the first in line and say, well, today I'm afraid. But God said, turn to me, because I am the one who will give you strength. Isaiah 26:3, he says, he who keeps their mind stayed on me, I will keep them in perfect peace, right? So God is saying, he says, I am the one that will prune, that will take away. And he says, um, when the 10,000 walk away, when the 22,000 walk away, where will you be? When I turn around and look for you, where will you be? Because you remember when he turned around, when the family turned around to get to get Jesus, when Joseph and Mary went home from the Passover meal that they celebrated every year, Jesus stayed behind. Jesus was in the temple. Jesus was not out playing basketball. Jesus was not out hanging at the bars. Jesus was not out hanging out in things that he had no business hanging out in. And when they come back, he was in that temple, dealing with the scholars, dealing with the elders, the priests. And yeah, it takes time to get rid of some of those things, and God will do it in his timing. It is not for me to say, but I believe when you hear some of these things, it's dealing with your heart, it's dealing with your spirit. But turn to God in due season. He said, "You will, if you faint not, you will reap." And I just believe that most of us are reaping, and we will continue to pray for one another. Whatever God is saying for you, it is for you. And he says, I'm more for you than the whole world against you. Again, do what this God has called you to do. And again, he's saying that in Psalms 139, he says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And you know that quite well. But sometimes the enemy can come in and make us be like Gideon. We can be fearful. We don't think we're enough. We think we're too broken to take on the will of God. I've been there. I was nowhere near in this word this way. 2000 and my son born in 97, and it was before my son was born that I started. I was like Gideon, like, show it to me. Give me a son. If you give me a son, I'll run for you. There you go. Thank you, God. That was my plea. That's what I said to God. You know what? I don't want any kids. I'm just not that motherly. I said it to God. Don't get angry, because a lot of us have things we like and don't like, and then he deals with us like Gideon. We don't know. And I said to God, I don't want kids, but there was something that came over me after getting married. I knew something was missing, because I've always said, I don't want children, but I just believe God giving me this boy is what has truly saved my life. And not only saved my life, I just believe out of some of the dark areas, things we encounter in life experiences. We all deal with life experiences. I believe God used that to get me where I am today. So I'm going to say probably in 93, I started asking God, like Gideon, show me a sign, give me the sign. And some days I still do. Some days I'll say, I don't want to do it your way. I want to do it my way. But somehow I get back on track through his word, and God would do some things. Again, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like Gideon. Right now, I'm sitting in some uncomfortable situations. God has spoken in my life, spoken through my life, and I don't understand it, but he's not left me in the past. He says, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And he says, I'm the same God yesterday, today, and forevermore. And I'm just going to believe him. He's not left me. And I'm just waiting to see what God is going to do with me coming out of COVID season. And I would just say to you all, just continue to pray and press toward the mark, and let the treasures in these earthen vessels produce what God has put down on the inside. Because Philippians 1:6, it says, be confident of this very thing, that good work that I started on in you, I'm going to complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. It may not look like what I'm doing, and mine may not look like what you're doing, but God is the one who's going to get the glory out of whatever it is. And he's saying to you, don't be prideful. Don't have a haughty spirit. Don't you act like you're doing it. And if you don't do it the way I've given it to you, I gave instruction. You've heard my voice. Now walk out on it in the way that I did, in the way that I've given you. those instructions. And until next time, Restore from the Inside Out Ministries. Be like Gideon. Ask the question. It takes only 300, not 32,000. And if it's only you that he sends, Isaiah, he said in Isaiah chapter 6, after God touched his mouth with a hot coal, meaning he was convicted when he saw and felt the presence of the Lord filling the temple. He said, "Ooh, I'm a man with unclean lips, and I am in the presence of people with unclean lips." And he said, "God, help me, clean me up." And God says after that, "Who can I send?" Isaiah said, "Send me." I don't remember Isaiah taking anyone, because if you read Isaiah 6, 1 through 8, it says, in the year of King Uzziah's death, I saw the Lord high and lifted up. So some things have to be cut off. Some things has to be taken out of your life. Some things and some people, there are people you are afraid to walk away from because God has said it. He said they can't go with you. And until you release it and you tell me in the spirit that I can release you from that, you're not going where you need to go. You're going to keep hitting a brick wall. He said, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and lifted up. And then after all of that cleaning up of Isaiah, God says, "Who can I send?" Isaiah said, "Send me. Here I am. Send me." Some of us are afraid like Gideon, but press toward that mark. And I don't know why I just keep saying, I just keep hearing God say, he's spoken to you. He's spoken to you. It's him. Turn to him and say, "God, help me to go. Help me to go." See, some of us thought it was the building that saved us. Now that you're not in the building, because most of those buildings are not open as far as the church houses, now you got to get this stuff for yourself. When the shepherd's away, it says the sheep will stray. Have you strayed? He'll come and find you just like Gideon and send the angel of the Lord to strengthen you. He's going to give instruction on how to do his will, and we better do it his way. If not, it's not going to work. You may not come out of this season if you don't do it God's way. Until next time, Restore from the Inside Out Ministries. Let him work on that heart.